to NKJ Science News. Well, now we're going to talk about acids and bases. Now, acid, they release H plus ions. And bases, they are OH negative ions. So, the acid is an H plus donor, while the base is an H plus acceptor. Now, our pH scale. So, acids have a very low pH. You can have 1, 2, and 3. Bases have very high pHs, so like from 8 and up. Now, when you have a neutral pH, you have a pH of 7, which is water, which is a pure substance. Now, a buffer, it reacts with strong acids or a base, but they transform and they don't drastically change that pH. Now to a compound. A compound is a substance that is formed by chemical combination of two or more different elements, like potassium and chlorine, so KCl. Then you have three types of different chemical bonds. You have ionic bonds, covalent bonds, and hydrogen bonds. Now, an ionic bond is like KCl. A covalent bond is something when you can put two oxygens together, which makes molecular oxygen. And then a hydrogen bond is something like, you can make a diamond or graphite. They're hydrogen bonds. Now, we're going to move on to solutions. A solution is, your mixture that dissolves in a substance. Four common elements found in the human body is oxygen, which you have about 65% of, carbons, which are 18.5, hydrogens, which are 9.5, and nitrogen are 3%. We're going to go to a commercial break now. Welcome back. So now we're going to talk about carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and fats. Now, carbohydrates break down and convert to glucose, and they provide fuel for your body. Proteins are composed of amino acids, nutrients used to repair cells, tissues, all different things. And lipids, they're broken down into glycerol molecules and fatty acids, used by the body for heat. Now, there's three different types of lipids. You have phospholipids, steroids, and triglycerides. Now, triglycerides are lipids that have three different fatty acids linked to glycerol, and they're a big source of fuel. Now, phospholipids, lipids with major component of cell membranes and myelin sheath of neurons. And then steroids are lipids derived from cholesterol, which is made to use steroids, hormones. Functions of proteins are, you got your hemoglobin, your antigen, your enzymes, and your plasma proteins. Now, here on our site, we have talking about metabolism, and metabolism are all the chemical reactions that occur in your body. Now, anabolism are the building of complex chemical substances from smaller, similar components, but they're simpler. They're much more simple than when you're metabolizing. Hi, so now cell lineage, which is the history of the cell from the time of it is born. Now, stem cells, they're unspecialized cells that can give rise to one or more different types of specialized cells. And progenitor cells, a cell that is more specialized than a stem cell and is not capable of self-renewal. But the difference is, stem cells can be anything they want to be, and they are also capable of self-renewal. And self-renewal is making a new something of oneself, or more of it. Now to Julie.
Thank you, Noah. I will now describe mitosis, which is a process where the nucleus divides into two nuclei with the same genetic information. Mitosis is responsible for growth and repair in an organism. There are 5 phases of mitosis, which begin with interphase, in which a cell is in most of its life. In this phase, DNA is replicated for mitosis. During replication, chromatids clump themselves into chromosomes. Prophase, which follows interphase, begins with centrosomes migrating to opposite sides of the cell. The nuclear membrane then begins to fade, and the DNA clumps together. After this is metaphase, where the nuclear membrane has disappeared and centrosomes are at opposite sides of the cell. Chromosomes line up in the center of the cell and attach themselves to microtubules. After this is anaphase, where the microtubules pull chromosomes apart, and DNA splits to migrate towards opposite sides of the cell. Then, and lastly, telophase begins, and the chromosomes unwind themselves, and the nuclear membrane forms around the DNA. Then a process called cytokinesis pinches the cells into two separate cells. And now, for explaining how mitosis can go wrong. Kira Lum.
Thanks, Julie. When most cells reproduce properly and go through the process of mitosis without error, environmental factors such as UV rays, toxic carcinogens, along with genetic factors may lead to a deformed cell. Contact inhibition is a mechanism that functions to create space inside of a cell by telling that cell to stop growing when the space inside has already been occupied and a monolayer has already been established. With cancer cells, however, the cell will continue to grow in an unregulated manner, creating that lump of cells. Most of the time, cells are supposed to be able to sense that mutation and eliminate themselves through a process called apoptosis. However, when the cell does not realize it is deformed, it will create that lump of cells, also known as a tumor. Considering our body replicates over 100 billion cells a day, one deformed cell can lead to thousands, if not millions, of other ones. This process of replication will continuously make copies of that mutated cell, slowly erasing important cell function and instructions, leading to even more error in the body. Hopefully, doctors and researchers can continue to find more developments in the medical field to help the millions of people affected by this disease every day.